My stepdaughter humiliated me after her biological father came back, so I told her, "You were just a burden all these years," and I left the house for good. I am a 42-year-old man. I've been married for over a decade to my wife, Clara, who is 40. When I met her, she was already the mother of a little girl, Camila, who was just 5 years old at the time. From the first moment we met, I felt a special affection for the girl. She wasn't my biological daughter, but over time, she became an essential part of my life. The story I'm about to tell here has to do with something that happened recently in our family, an event that shattered everything we had built. To explain it properly, I need to go back to how it all began, because without context, it would seem like what happened was sudden or senseless. And it wasn't. When I met Clara, she told me from the start that she was a single mother. She told me that Camila's father, a man named Javier, had left when the girl was just a few months old. Apparently, he couldn't handle the idea of being a father so young. They were around 24 years old when it happened, and he disappeared without an explanation, without taking responsibility, without contributing financially, without even calling on birthdays or important dates. He literally washed his hands of her completely. Clara told me she expected nothing from him and didn't want to talk much about it. Her family knew the story, and they had all resigned themselves to the fact that Javier would not return. The girl grew up with no memories of her father, because memories from when you're a few months old don't stick. So, for all practical purposes, her father was a stranger to Camila. I came into both of their lives when Camila was 5. At first, I admit, I was scared to take on that role. It's not easy to get involved with someone who already has a child, because it's not just about the relationship with your partner, but also with that child who depends on adults. If you don't do it right, you can end up hurting them. But I really wanted to be with Clara, and the idea of forming a family excited me. The first few months were about adapting. Camila treated me with a certain distance, as is normal for a young child who doesn't know if this person will be a permanent fixture in their life. I tried not to force anything, just to be there, to play with her, to take her to the park, to help with basic things. Little by little, she began to trust me. She would say I was her friend, and after a while, she started calling me Dad on her own initiative. That moment marked a before and after in my life. I didn't ask her to call me that, nor did I hint at it. It was her decision, and it filled me with emotion. From then on, I took on the role of a father with all my might. I took her to her first day of school. I went to her festivals. I was with her when she was sick. I taught her to ride a bike. I helped her with her homework. Everything a father does, I did. When I married Clara, Camila was our flower girl. She was 8 years old, and I remember that day she hugged me and whispered in my ear, "Now you're really my dad." I cried like never before. It was the best gift they could have given me. The years passed, and our life was peaceful. Like in all families, there were ups and downs, financial problems, moments of stress, but we were always united. My relationship with Camila grew and strengthened. During her teenage years, we clashed, like any father with a teenage daughter, but we always found a way to fix it. I saw her as my daughter, with no distinction whatsoever. So much so that I even started the legal adoption process. It wasn't easy because even though Javier was gone, he was still legally the father. We had to wait, go through paperwork, and finally, we managed to get me shared legal custody with Clara. That day, I felt that I was officially what I had already been in practice for many years, her father. Up to this point, it would seem like the story of an ordinary family with its normal complications, but what happened next changed everything. A few months ago, when Camila turned 20, Javier returned. I don't know what prompted him, because there were no prior signs. He appeared out of nowhere after 15 years of being completely off the grid. Not a message, not a call, nothing. One day, he simply wrote to Clara saying he wanted to see his daughter. At first, we thought it was a joke. How can someone disappear for their daughter's entire childhood and adolescence and then suddenly, when she's a woman, want to show up as if nothing happened. Clara was furious. She responded harshly, telling him he had no right, that it was too late, that he couldn't expect Camila to welcome him with open arms after so much abandonment. I shared that sentiment. To me, Javier was a stranger, someone who had done absolutely nothing for the girl. But what we didn't anticipate was Camila's reaction. When she found out her biological father had appeared, she wasn't angry as we thought she would be. On the contrary, she was curious, even excited. She told me she wanted to meet him, that she needed answers, that she couldn't just ignore that she had a biological father who now wanted to talk to her. I tried to gently warn her that she might be chasing an illusion and could get hurt if she expected too much, but she replied that it was something she had to do for herself. I understood, sort of. It's not easy for a child to live with the absence of a parent. Even though I had always been there and our bond was strong, a biological absence leaves unanswered questions. Why did he leave? Why didn't he call? What was more important than being with his daughter? Camila needed to know, and I couldn't compete with that. The day she met him, she came back different. I saw in her eyes that something had changed. She told me Javier had apologized, explaining that he was immature back then, that he wasn't ready to be a father, that he was filled with fear and ran away. He told her he had always thought of her, that he never stopped loving her, but that he hadn't felt capable of facing her. To me, those words sounded like excuses, but to Camila, they were a bomb. She told me she understood his reasons, that everyone makes mistakes, and she wanted to give him a chance. I said nothing, because I knew that if I tried to object, the only thing I would accomplish was to make her shut me out. Little by little, Javier started to have more of a presence in her life. He would call her, invite her out, bring her gifts. I watched him and felt a mixture of rage and helplessness. For 15 years, he had done nothing, and now he was arriving with flowers and sweet words to win over his daughter, as if the past could be erased with a few gestures. Clara was angry too, but in the end, she decided not to interfere. She told me Camila was an adult and had the right to decide whether or not she wanted a relationship with her biological father. I knew that, but it didn't make it hurt any less. I started to notice a change in my relationship with Camila. Before, she told me everything, asked for my advice, hugged me. Now, she spoke to me less, hid things from me. She preferred to spend time with Javier. It hurt me deeply because I felt like I was losing my daughter. One day, I confronted her. I asked if something was wrong, if I had done something to make her pull away. She told me coldly that she needed space, that she wanted to get to know her real father, and that I should understand. That phrase pierced me like a knife. Her real father. I had been there her whole life, had given everything for her, had given things up, had worked so she wouldn't lack anything, and suddenly she was telling me I wasn't her real father. From then on, our relationship deteriorated. We started to argue frequently. I tried to explain that Javier didn't deserve so much forgiveness, that he had abandoned her, that actions couldn't be erased with words. But she accused me of being jealous, of not letting her grow up, of trying to take away her chance to have her biological father. I felt as if I had been erased from her story. Everything I had done seemed not to matter. And the worst part was, I couldn't do anything, because the more I tried to get closer, the more she pushed me away. The arguments with Camila had become routine. She defended Javier with an enthusiasm that I found almost ridiculous, as if the simple fact that they shared blood erased 20 years of absence. I tried to remain calm, but deep down, my blood boiled seeing how she downplayed my importance and glorified him. One Saturday, she arranged to meet her father. She was radiant. She dressed up carefully and came downstairs with a smile I hadn't seen on her face in a long time. She spent hours waiting. She checked her phone constantly, got up, sat back down. The hopeful light in her eyes slowly faded until she finally accepted the reality: Javier wasn't coming. Not a message, not a call, nothing. She went up to her room in silence. I left her alone for a while, but later I went to check on her. "Camila," I said, "you see? That man is not worth it. You should stop idealizing him. He's nothing more than an acquaintance, a stranger who chose to disappear." She looked at me with red eyes, full of contained rage. "You don't understand." His paternal instinct brought him back to me. "Do you know how much I suffered not having a father? You will never understand. I grew up saying I had a stepfather, that's all." That word, stepfather, pierced me like a hot iron, but I didn't let her see it. "Seriously? You think you didn't have a father?" I shot back. "And all the times I was with you? When I took you to the park, when I taught you to ride your bike, when I went to your school. Does that not count?" She frowned and, with a coldness that chilled me, replied, "You were just Mom's boyfriend, some random guy I liked. But he is my blood. I am his blood." I felt a burst of rage. She was looking at me as if I were nothing, as if all those years of sleepless nights, expenses, care, and sacrifices had been invisible. And then I let out what I had been holding back for a long time. "You know what? You're right. Let him be the one to pay for your things, let him be the one to take care of you, because in the end, you're not my daughter. You were just a burden I had to put up with so I could sleep with your mother." The silence was absolute. She looked at me, her face contorted, and burst into tears. I stood there, certain that this sentence was exactly what she needed to hear. It was cruel, yes, but she had reduced me to a random guy. If she was going to despise what I had done, then she should feel the sharp edge of the truth as well. At that moment, Clara appeared at the door. "What did you just say?" she screamed, with a fury I had rarely seen in her. Camila was crying uncontrollably, repeating between sobs, "I always suspected it. I knew you didn't love me. I knew it. Get out of here," Clara yelled at me. "Right now." I didn't argue. I calmly gathered my things, without rushing. While Camila cried in her mother's arms, I walked out of the room with a firm step. Clara caught up with me in the hallway. "Don't ever come back." "Don't worry," I replied coldly. "I've done what I needed to do." I closed the front door behind me. Outside, the cool night air hit my face. I felt no guilt or regret. I knew my words had been harsh, even cruel, but they were also necessary. She needed to understand that fathers are not defined by blood, but by what they do. And if she wanted to ignore that, then she deserved to hear what she heard. I got in my car and lit a cigarette. I looked up at the house's window. The light in Camila's room was still on. I could imagine her tears, Clara's comfort, the rage against me. But I felt nothing. After 20 years, it was clear where my place in that family was, outside. And I accepted it without faltering. Update: the days following that argument were strange. For years, I had shouldered responsibilities that weren't mine, and in the end, all I received was contempt. I wasn't going to let them continue to humiliate me. I prepared everything for the divorce. I spoke with a lawyer, gathered the necessary papers, and within a few days, the process was underway. Clara didn't take long to respond to the filing, and it was evident that she was as determined as I was to make a clean break. It hurt, of course it did, because I shared over a decade of my life with her. But it was also clear to me that our relationship had deteriorated long before Javier returned. Her silence in the face of Camila's dismissiveness was enough to make me realize that my place in her life was never fully secure. The first thing I did was cut off expenses. I stopped paying Camila's college tuition and the household bills. It made no sense to continue supporting a home from which I had been kicked out like a stranger. I had to set boundaries, even if it sounded cruel. A few calm days passed. I moved into a small apartment with just the essentials. Living alone again after so many years was a strange feeling. Absolute silence, no laughter, no arguments, no one to wait for at dinner. For a moment, I thought about calling them, asking how they were, but I stopped myself. I had decided not to go back. One afternoon, I received a call. The number was familiar. I answered and heard her voice. It was Camila. "Hello," she said in an uncertain tone. "It's me. I wanted to talk to you." I was silent for a few seconds. I didn't expect that call so soon. "Go on," I replied coldly. "I wanted to tell you." "You were right," she began. "Javier. He hasn't contacted me again. He doesn't answer my messages. I don't know where he is. I thought he had come back to stay, but he disappeared again." Her voice broke. I closed my eyes and sighed. I wasn't surprised. In fact, I always knew that would happen. "I want to apologize for what happened," she continued. "I was hurt, confused. I said things I shouldn't have." For a few seconds, I felt a slight tremor in my chest. It was the first time she had acknowledged that she had hurt me with her words, but I decided not to show any weakness. "Sure," I replied sarcastically. "Now you come looking for the substitute dad." "No, don't say that," she pleaded. "Listen to me carefully, Camila. You're not a child anymore. You're 20 years old, and it's time for you to grow up. You should learn to be grateful to the person who actually lends you a hand. All this time, I was your father, even if you didn't carry my blood. But I'm not going to stay in a place where I'm humiliated and treated like a stranger." On the other end of the line, I heard her crying. "Dad, forgive me. You are my real dad. I was a blind fool. Please, come back. Come back, Daddy." Her voice hit me hard. That word, Daddy, stirred something deep inside me. For a moment, I felt my heart soften. I wanted to cry. I thought about the years we shared, about when she was a little girl and would run to me with open arms, about her childhood drawings where I was always present. I remained silent, clutching the phone to my ear. I was about to give in, but then she kept talking. At least give me some money for tuition. They already notified me that you stopped paying." And that was it. I felt what little tenderness had been awakened in me extinguish in an instant. I understood that the call hadn't been out of sincere regret, but out of necessity. She was only looking for me because she needed the money. I smiled bitterly. "Now I understand everything," I said in a low voice. "You didn't call me because you consider me your father. You called me because you need me to keep paying your bills." "That's not true," she cried through her tears. "I swear it's not because of that. Enough, Camila. Don't lie to me." And I hung up. I turned off the phone and left it on the table. I sat on the sofa, staring at the wall in silence. I didn't feel sadness or guilt. I felt a kind of bitter peace, like someone who finally confirms what they always suspected, that they had never been enough. In that moment, I knew the story was over. There was no turning back. The following days were quiet. The divorce process moved forward quickly, without major complications. Clara and I signed the papers without arguing. She was serious, distant, as if she also wanted to close that chapter as soon as possible. I was left with my things and my freedom. They moved on with their lives. Today, I can say it without hesitation, I am divorced and have no relationship with Camila. I don't talk to her, I don't ask about her. I'm not interested in knowing if Javier showed up again or if he disappeared for good. It's no longer my problem. For years, I considered her my daughter. I cared for her, I provided for her, I gave her everything I could. But she preferred to give the title of father to a man who abandoned her before she could even say her first words. That was her mistake. And I'm not going to bear the consequences. Many might say I was cruel, that I should have had more patience, that the wounds of an abandoned child are deep and difficult to heal. But there's a limit to everything. And I'm not going to stay where I'm not valued. It may sound cold, but I learned an important lesson. Love, no matter how genuine, needs reciprocity. Without gratitude, without recognition, it becomes a burden. And I am no longer willing to carry anyone else. Today, I live alone with the peace of mind of knowing I said what I had to say and made the decisions I had to make. Sometimes at night, I think about her, about what our relationship could have been if she had known how to value what she had. But those thoughts last only a few seconds. I pour myself a drink, look out the window, and move on. Camila stopped being my daughter the day she called me a random guy, and although she tried to take it back later, she did so too late. Because in this world, there's something that never returns, broken trust. Now I am a free man, divorced, childless, with no ties. Loneliness may feel heavy at times, but I prefer that to staying in a place where I'm not valued. And if one day Camila understands what she lost, it will be her burden to carry, not mine.